evening and welcome to the November 5th Council meeting. If you would please stand, Councilman Lucio is going to lead us in the flag salute this evening.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Our first proclamation is the Purple Heart City. Tonight, to help us reaffirm Chino's commitment as a proud Purple Heart City along the Purple Heart Trail, honoring the service and sacrifice of those who have given so much to protect our freedom. I'd like to call up Myra Pratt, Community Services Parks and Recreation Manager with the City of Chino, David Matoyer, U.S. Marine Corps, Corporal E4, Vietnam, Alex Ortiz, U.S. Army Sergeant E6, Vietnam, and Dennis Murillo, U.S. Army Specialist E5 from Vietnam. And the proclamation reads, "The citizens of Chino have great admiration and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas veterans have paid the high price of freedom by leaving their families and communities and placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all, the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women from the city of Chino who served in the armed forces have been vital in defending the hard-won freedoms and liberties of our Constitution that are treasured by our citizens. The Purple Heart is awarded to those of the armed forces of the United States that have been wounded by an instrument of war in the hands of the enemy, or posthumously to the next of kin in the name of those killed in action or those who have died of their wounds in service to their country." On December 3rd, 2013, the City of Chino joined the Purple Heart City program, which constitutes a series of cities along the Purple Heart Trail that honor those who have given so much in the preservation of all of our freedoms. In reaffirming our commitment to honor Purple Heart recipients, as well as our appreciation and admiration for their sacrifices, this proclamation solidifies our community's gratefulness to their service. And whereas, to show that we proudly stand as a Purple Heart City, 3 signs proudly displaying this designation have been placed in our community. One at our community building as part of the Chino Liberty Courtyard, and the other 2 on a prominent median along Central Avenue right in front of City Hall. This proclamation will be brought back every year going forward to remember the sacrifices made by so many and to reaffirm our commitment as a community to them. Now, therefore, I, Eunice Emuloa, Mayor of the City of Chino, do hereby proclaim and reaffirm the City of Chino's proud commitment to be a Purple Heart City along the Purple Heart Trail to honor the service and sacrifice made to preserve the freedoms we all enjoy today.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your continued support. We definitely want to thank you guys for your service. We want to start by acknowledging, as our mayor mentioned, we do have a webpage at thecityofchino.org/Purple Heart. If you or a family member are a recipient, please log in. You will fill out a couple questions, upload a picture, and that is actually a live web page that is maintained year-round. We also want to invite the public. This Monday, we will be having our ceremony at the community building at 11 a.m. Our chief will be emceeing the ceremony, so please, we want to welcome all veterans and families to come attend. I will now pass it over to Michael.
Hi, we're honored to be here today. My name is Michael Leeson. I'm the post commander. I'm honored to be standing here next to my 2 brothers who are Purple Heart recipients themselves, Alex Ortiz and David Montoya. It's a godsend that they are here today and what they sacrificed, and I'm honored to be a brother, and we invite you to come visit our post on Veterans Day.
To help us proclaim November 14th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Records and Support Personnel Day, I'd like to call up the City of Chino Police Chief Kevin Menson, along with Police Records and Support Personnel. More of our local heroes. Whereas the Chino Police Department and law enforcement agencies throughout the state depend upon law enforcement records and support personnel to provide them with their vital services. The Chino Police Department Records Unit and support personnel throughout the department are crucial to helping identify, pursue, capture, and process suspected lawbreakers. These professionals continually use their expertise and experience to assist in identifying and tracking felons, maintaining accurate crime statistics, and improving apprehension strategies. It's important to recognize California's law enforcement records and support personnel for their valuable contributions to our law enforcement system and to public safety. And whereas the State Executive Board of the California Law Enforcement Association of Records Supervisors has designated Thursday, November 14th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Records and Support Personnel Day, now therefore, I, Eunice Emuloa, Mayor of the City of Chino, in honor of the records and support personnel of the Chino Police Department, do hereby recognize Thursday, November 14th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Records and Support Personnel Day here in the City of Chino.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for recognizing this very high-functioning team. So this is Supervisor Amanda Tamperon, Senior Technician Michelle Ogilvie, and our Records Technician Jordan Frost. So they process over 10,000 reports every year, and they play a very critical part when we talk about disrupting crime. We have the officers out on the street that make the arrest and catching the criminals that are victimizing our community. And then it is this team that is behind the scenes processing these reports, making sure these reports are routed to where they need to go, whether it be the district attorney, on a very tight time schedule to make sure that we have follow through with prosecuting. So I commend each and every one of them for their work, their dedication to this community and our department. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next, Inclusion Community Celebration. The City of Chino proudly hosted its first Inclusion Community Celebration on Saturday, September 14th, a block party dedicated to the Chino Valley's special needs community. The success of this event was made possible by the invaluable support, expertise, and partnership of our dedicated local nonprofit organizations, Adrian's World Incorporated, Autism Society Inland Empire, Behavior Highway, and Love Them All Foundation. Their commitment truly made a difference. The event featured a resource fair, sensory rooms, inflatable games, bubble making station, a DJ, petting zoo, and delicious food, creating a vibrant atmosphere for all to enjoy. Thanks to the generosity of the Chino Youth Museum Board, free admission to the museum was offered to every attendee. A total of 600 people registered for the event. This celebration is a shining example of our commitment to building a community where every individual is valued and included. To share in the excitement, let's watch a special video from ABC News 7 that captures the joy and the spirit of the day.
Families came together to participate in the first ever Inclusion Community Celebration hosted by the City of Chino.
And this one-of-a-kind event was designed for the neurodivergent and special needs community. And Eyewitness News reporter Irene Cruz has a story in tonight's All Good News.
A one-of-a-kind block party in Chino. It's called the Inclusion Community Celebration, the first in the city at the Neighborhood Community Center.
600 signups for this event, first ever, that's huge.
The City of Chino partnered with groups like Adrian's World. People with autism, Down syndrome, ADD, ADHD enjoyed games, food, and sensory-friendly activities.
Sometimes if it's too loud of a noise or too big of a crowd, some of our community members get overstimulated. So sometimes those items will kind of help desensitize them.
Waylon Stillwell has autism and was rocking out with one of the sensory prizes. His parents say this is a great space for people to let their guard down because families here truly understand.
And have them understand if your child is humming or dancing or whatever, so they completely understand. And it's fun to build, form relationships.
Melanie Stovall with the Legacy Bridges Foundation has a 14-year-old daughter who lives with epileptic seizures. She noticed there was a lacking connection to community and resources.
So that's why we kind of said, hey, let's be that. Let's build that foundation and that support that everybody needs.
Even the Chino Police Department came out telling people about the envelope program. Officers get special training for when they see a blue envelope on a dashboard during a traffic stop.
They know that they may have to change their way that they talk or the way that they do their traffic stops safely.
The city of Chino says the goal is for this to become an annual event.
I'd like to call up Sylvia Avalos, our Director of City of Chino's Community Services, Parks and Recreation Department. I'd also like to call up Felicia Guzman, representative from Adrian's World Incorporated, Melissa Cardona, representative from Autism Society Inland Empire, Christina Dang, representative from Behavior Highway, and Tony Virches, representative from Love Them All Foundation. We have certificates for each of you. Sylvia, would you like to pass these out, please?
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council members, for the support of this event. We were overwhelmed in excitement of how great this event turned out. We have been meeting with the nonprofits and, of course, our Community Services, Parks and Recreation Special Events team, and as well as Lisa Almili from our accessibility coordinator, who has also been involved for the past year before the event. So it was a successful event. We are so grateful and thankful for the partnership, for your expertise that you shared, as well as just overall commitment. This event was successful because of the partnership. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Just want to say thank you. I want to thank Councilman Flores, who advocated for us for this event. We met over a year ago, and just to think about just the thoughts and ideas that we had and to see it come to life was a pretty beautiful thing. So I just want to thank the City of Chino, the entire team. They were absolutely amazing to work with. Our partners on the committee, we couldn't have done it without you guys, so I really appreciate it. And I just want to give a shout out to my team because I wouldn't be here without them. So I am the voice, they are the heart. So thank you guys.
I just want to say thank you because without the community and the partnership with the city, the mayor, and the councilors, this wouldn't have happened. And as a Chino resident, I am super happy that the community has included the inclusion. As a parent with multiple special needs kiddos, it's really welcoming to know that the staff and the family members here, the police department, they're all invested in our children. So I'm super thankful for that.
Yes, thank you to the City of Chino. We work with a lot of cities, and Chino was on top of it. Anything we dreamt of, we were like, what if we did this? Chino was like, we'll figure it out, we'll make it happen. And it was just so magical and so great. And it just really came together. If you had time to visit, you had a great time. Hopefully you guys can come next year. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, kind of, everything what they said was so quick. We had such a great time, great support. We really look forward to having everybody come out next year. So hopefully with our team, we can get the word out and have you guys come out and to see what a difference it makes in these young kids' worlds. I mean, to understand them, to accept them, and to work with them, it's just amazing. So thank you again for everybody. Thank you for the city. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, everyone.
We also have a park that you're all going to enjoy. It should be opening hopefully within the next month, 6 weeks, on the corner of Central and Phillips. And it's made specially for children that have disabilities. So we're really excited about that opening up because that's our first park that's really designed specially for people that have issues. Thank you. Thank you again very much. Oh, you're welcome. Okay. And last, I would like to call up Chief Menson. I'd like to call up the team Chino softball members present, and Adrian Lopez, member of the Los Angeles Police Department and a Special Olympics board member. On Friday, October 18th, come on, Chris. On Friday, October 18th, officers from the Chino Police Department participated in the annual First Responders Softball Tournament hosted by the Los Angeles Police Department. The event was held at Big League Field of Dreams in Chino Hills and featured 30 teams from across Southern California, with Chino PD taking first place. Councilmember Flores proudly joined the team on the field, which largely contributed to their success. At least that's what he says. Beyond their victory, the Chino Police Officers Association showed their commitment to giving back, as proceeds from the tournament will go to support the Special Olympics of Southern California. Now I'd like to invite Adrian Lopez to say a few words about the fundraiser.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, for having me here. I appreciate it. I'm just going to talk about Special Olympics really quick. I'm not much of a speaker. Don't want to take up too much of your time. But Special Olympics is it has a special place in my heart. I started working with Special Olympic athletes and the program about 9 years ago. And what we do as a member of the council, we try and raise money every year. And it's through events, playing pool, tip-a-cop, the softball tournament, events throughout the year. And what Special Olympics does is it creates a training program for children and adults with special needs. It helps them really progress in life. It helps them assimilate with other people, and just gets them out. So the fundraising aspect is very important. The law enforcement torch run is the biggest fundraising, the grassroots fundraising campaign for Special Olympics. So we're comprised of law enforcement officers for Southern California section from San Luis Obispo all the way to San Diego. And we meet quarterly and we talk about events that we're having in our area. And some of those events, Chino has been very supportive of coming out and they've been out supporting Special Olympics. One of the events they had this year was a tip-a-cop over at the Red Robin in Chino. They raised over $2,500 in a very short period of time. They did the law enforcement torch run where they passed the flame of hope to another police department, another agency, and it really raises awareness to the Special Olympics, and it does raise money. And just 2 weeks ago, we had the softball tournament, which is a big tournament. It's held right here at the Big League Dreams in Chino Hills. It brought out 36 softball teams, law enforcement softball teams, to raise money for Special Olympics. Now, there were 24 teams in the same bracket as Chino Police Department. That means they went through 23 other they went through a lot of games and a lot of teams to get to the top. So kudos to the Chino Police Department. Round of applause for them. Allegedly, they were coached by Chief Kevin Menson, is what I understand, is what he told me. So kudos to them. We were able to raise in excess of $30,000 for that tournament alone. And that goes directly to Special Olympics of Southern California. So thank you, Chino Council and Chino Police Department, for being very supportive of Special Olympics. On behalf of Special Olympics Council, I want to thank everyone for being involved every year, because law enforcement is really important to Special Olympics. It's every year, it's throughout the year, and we have fundraisers. So if you see them out there, come out and join. It's for everybody to join. And I want to say thank you to everyone. And last year law enforcement did raise $1.8 million for Special Olympics. So it's huge. You can in Southern California alone. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having me out here. I appreciate it. And congratulations.
So one of the requirements at the Chino Police Department when we hire people is what is their experience with baseball. So there is like first-class college athletes standing up here, including the council members. So they've been participating in this tournament now a few years, and for them to go out and on their own time use their money, their entry money, to pay for it, and to play that amount of games in one day, and to win this trophy. We're extremely proud of them. Thank you, Adrian. He left his wife over there, Yvette, who is also on the board. Their dedication to Special Olympics and really bringing us on board in this. So thank you once again.
Now come together so she can get everybody in the picture. Come here, Kevin. Oh, thank you. All right.
Sorry, this one, number one.
No, oh, number one. All right. Here we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you and congratulations for the win. So it was all because of you. Was he really? Oh, I was gonna say. Okay. City Manager Wright, do we have any additions or revisions to our agenda?
No changes, Mayor.
Okay. Next, we have public announcements. Bark Around Ayala Park. Mark your calendars for a tail-wagging good time at Bark Around Ayala Park, an event that promises a fun-filled day for our community's four-legged friends and their families. Join us on Saturday, November 9th from 9 to 12 at Ruben S. Ayala Park, located at 5575 Edison Avenue, hosted by the City of Chino and Chino Valley YMCA. This possum event will include an agility course, dog fashion show, best trick contest, informative demonstrations, pet vendors, raffles, and more. For additional details, please visit www.cityofchino.org/bark. Veterans Day Ceremony. The City of Chino proudly invites you to join us for our annual Veteran Day Ceremony, a heartfelt tribute to the courageous men and women who have selflessly served our nation. The event will be held on Monday, November 11th at 11 o'clock at Liberty Courtyard, just outside the community building located at 5443 B Street. We encourage everyone to come together, honor the sacrifices made by our veterans, and pay respect to those who have given so much for our freedom. For more information, please visit www.cityofchino.org/Veterans Day. And I really do encourage you all to come. It's a very, very moving ceremony. You'll be able to see the bricks that veterans have purchased that are in the courtyard. It's a beautiful setting. Also, please note that City Hall will be closed on Monday, November 11th in observation of Veterans Day and will reopen on Tuesday, November 12th. Christmas tree lighting ceremony, Santa's Workshop. Looking ahead to December, we invite everyone to start the holiday season with us at the annual tree lighting ceremony and Santa's Workshop. Join me, our City Council, our commissioners for a magical evening on Saturday, December 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. with the tree lighting ceremony at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall lawn. Together, we'll light the tree, enjoy photos with Santa, listen to Christmas carolers, decorate cookies, write letters to Santa, and take part in holiday crafts. For more information, please visit www.cityofchino.org/tree lighting. And finally, I invite the entire community to one of the most anticipated events of the holiday season, the Chino Youth Christmas Parade and Fair. Join us on Saturday, December 14th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. as we celebrate our community and the spirit of the holidays. The parade will feature decorated entries celebrating the talents of Chino's youth and will be followed by a tree holiday fair and carnival at City Hall lawn. Additionally, the Chino Youth Museum will be celebrating its 25th anniversary as it transforms to Santa's Village from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. For more information, please visit www.cityofchino.org/parade. Next item on the agenda is public communication. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the City Council about subjects that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Due to council policy and Brown Act requirements, action will not be taken on any issues that are not on the agenda, according to Ordinance Number 97-08. We limit speakers to no more than 5 minutes in which to address the council, except as provided under Government Code 54954.3B2. If more than 3 persons seek to address the same agenda item or subject matter, I may establish a maximum time period not to exceed 30 minutes. Now, I do have an insert that I would like to read because I understand many of you are here on an item that is not on the agenda. Before we begin, I understand there are a number of residents here this evening who have come to speak about a project at Euclid and Schaefer Avenues. What we have on our agenda this evening concerns adoption of the city's housing element, a required document that every city must have to maintain compliant with current state housing laws, independent of any specific development. If you would like to comment about the Euclid-Schaefer development, you may only do so during our public comment period, where community members discuss items that are not on the agenda this evening. However, I do need to tell you that if you comment on that project during this time, it will not be part of the public record for that development. You need to make these comments during the next workshop so that it's part of the official document when it comes to that development. The Euclid-Schaefer development is undergoing its own review and approval process independent of the action taken this evening. I invite you to attend the upcoming neighborhood meeting at a later date that will solely focus on the Euclid-Schaefer development. The date of this meeting will be shared with everyone as soon as it's set. At that meeting, you will hear from the developer and you can ask questions and share your concerns. And those concerns will be part of the official documentation of that development. Comments that you make tonight will not be part of the official record for that development. The project is currently in the public outreach phase where community members have the opportunity to learn about the development and provide feedback. City staff will also conduct a thorough review of the final project presented. After the public outreach is completed, the project will proceed to the Planning Commission for review. Now, you can learn more and receive updates about this neighborhood meeting at cityofchino.org/Orbis. That's ORBIS. So we look forward to you attending that meeting. Now I go in order of written comments. So my first written public comment this evening is from Pastor Joel Pickett. He's from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. He's going to lead us in an invocation. So I invite all of you who would like to participate to please stand.
Well, it's a privilege to pray on such an important day like Election Day. So let me pray. Father God in heaven, we first come before you and we just want to thank you for the salvation that you provide in Jesus Christ alone. Lord, that he came, that he lived, that he died, and he rose from the grave. We're grateful that no matter what takes place, we have our hope in heaven. Lord, we humbly come before you as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Before we ask anything from you, we choose to confess our sin to you. God, we repent of our sins both individually and nationally. Lord, in no way do we deserve your mercy or your grace, but Lord, we ask for, we plead with the throne in heaven, Lord, for grace upon our state, upon our nation, upon our county, and upon the city of Chino. You'd be more than justified to bring judgment upon us as a nation, but this night, with everything happening, with everything going on, we seek to intercede and petition. God, we ask that righteousness would reign in our country. Lord, that you would remove those who are wicked and promote evil, and that you would add those who will stand for what is good and what is right. And as for tonight here in this city, we pray that you would grant the city of Chino divine favor. God, we pray that you would give those who are our leaders, these elected officials, Lord, we pray that you would give them wisdom, Lord, that you would give them insight and understanding in how to lead. Lord, with all the topics that will be addressed tonight, we ask that you would grant righteous conclusions and consensus, and that this city of Chino would stand truly as a light in the darkness, that people would even look to this city as an example for how a city should be governed. And again, we thank you for all that you have done. We know that everything good in our life, in this city, in our nation, Lord, is from you. You tell us in your scriptures that you are the giver of all good things, that it all comes from you. And so we recognize you tonight as the Lord and the Savior and the one to whom we ultimately, Lord, owe our life to. And so, God, we pray this in the matchless name of Jesus Christ, the Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Joel. I know. Okay, next written request to speak is Yvette Gasso. She's going to talk about the Cultural Foundation event.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Yvette Gasso. I'm here representing the Chino Culture Foundation. I wanted to extend an invitation to the community and surrounding cities for an event we're going to be hosting. It is the Fall Artist Showcase, and it is this Thursday at Centro Bosco Restaurant from 6 to 9 p.m. Come out and support the artists. Initially, I was had some reservations as to did people know us in the art industry, and so it ended up from 1 room to 2 rooms. So I'm really excited that we have a full list. The event is free. We will be offering free appetizers and acoustic guitarist from Owen's Bistro. He will be there. He's pretty great. So we're excited to come on out and support the artists that are going to be showcasing. I also learned that Chino has a lot of artists, so that was really interesting to learn. But the purpose behind the event is to create some momentum, to get the word out there, start networking with a lot of artists, and let them know of things to come. For those that may not know, the city purchased what's known as the old Chino Theater, or newer is a t-shirt place. And so the Chino Culture Foundation is in final agreement with the city to operate that facility. So I've been spreading that word around via social media. So a lot of people are excited for things to come. So this is to create some momentum, share with the community that we're here, we're present. If you guys come out and you want to join the club or you want some more information, the board members will be present. It's a free event, and so we're excited. And we do have social media and a website, chinoculturefoundation.com. If you guys want to learn more, give us a follow or share our page to help us build that momentum socially. That would be great. So we're excited. It's open to employees, also the residents and surrounding cities, and we're really excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yvette. Steve Eli. IUA, right?
Yep, it's an official visit. No, seriously, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Council, residents. I'm Steve Eli. I'm the elected director of the Inland Empire Utilities Agency, also known as IUA. It's been a while. I know I saw you last week, Mayor, at the fire lunch, and I said I hadn't been down in a while, so here I am on a very momentous night. Pray for our country, pray for good things. Usually when I talk to this council, it's about a specific thing. I don't have a specific agenda tonight except to say that I'm happy that you usually the residents don't usually hear about what we do at IUA because it's behind the scenes, but it's so important. Water and wastewater. People want to turn on their taps and they get it from you, and we help you get it there, and then when it goes away, they go down the drain. We take care of it and turn it into recycled water, right? We take your showers and turn them into flowers. Now,
They want it out of sight, out of mind.
right, people want it outside of mind until it's a problem.
Yes.
Right? But I do want to say that in the coming year, there's going to be a lot of things going on. Water is a big issue. You know, a local council member from another city wrote an op-ed in the bulletin recently about what measures we can take. And we at IUA have a team that works on water conservation issues, and we've been having conversations with Hajan and her great team. And by the way, love Hajan's energy. She's brought a whole new vitality to the water side of public works, and I think it's exciting because she knows a lot of our people. She's worked with them before, and we're all professionals, and we can get a lot done together. And you know, when we go to Sacramento, we go to Washington, it's for the region. It's not just for IUA specific issues. And we represent all of you, and I specifically represent Chino and Chino Hills, and committed to continuing the great relationships that we've had for the 14 years I've been on the board and moving forward. You know, we got infrastructure. You know, Chino is a classic example of kind of two cities in one. You've got some much older infrastructure, and then you've got the newer infrastructure in the south at the preserve. So there's a lot going on, a lot to do. We're going to continue to work with your staff, with you. And again, I'll offer to any of you that want to come down and tour our regional plant 1 that's got, regional plant 5 that's got construction going on right now, that we're operating a huge plant, we're growing it and modernizing it all at the same time. It's a $400 million project, our largest thus far in our history.
That's big.
It's big, but we have, at times we've had 200 tradespeople on site while we're still operating a wastewater treatment plant that serves all of Chino, parts of Ontario, Chino Hills, et cetera. So that's all I have for tonight. Just wanted to say hi and wish everybody who's on the ballot good luck tonight.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks. Wasn't me.
Okay, now I do have a written request to speak on the project at Schaefer. It's Michelle Betke, and I do want to tell you, Michelle, you need to come to that workshop so that your comments are going to be officially part of the record, because they won't be part of the record tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank
You're
you, Mayor.
welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, and a special thanks to CPD for keeping our community safe. I'm incredibly proud to be a Chino resident, and because of that, and I'm also a neighbor to the upcoming Schaefer project, I'm here mainly to find out and learn more. So where can I get more information regarding the specifics of the development and ask questions so that I can be informed well before a meeting, and also making sure that I receive notice of an up and coming meeting. Thank goodness for a Facebook page that's been created for us by Greg that has informed me that about this project. I had no idea otherwise. So I just want to be making sure that I'm in the loop and I have a say.
Okay, Linda?
Yes. We've set up a webpage. It's cityofchino.org/Orbis, ORBIS. There's a button on there that you can push and you can sign up for information. So you'll get on a mailing list. We are working with a developer to hold that second meeting. We don't have a date yet, but as soon as we have it, we'll push that information out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next written request to speak is Hector Aguirre. Aguirre?
Gary Aguirre. Either one is fine.
Whatever works.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council members, and thank you for your service, by the way. Same thing. I just needed more information because I was surprised to hear that something like this was even going to be considered and possibly approved, because it's just going to change the whole landscape of the neighborhood. But apart from that, it's also affects the people that live near it, which I don't live too far from there. I think about the people that live just back up right to it. I'm sure I don't back up to it, but if any one of us backed up to it, I'm sure we wouldn't want that behind us. I'm also a local realtor, and I know that whether it's in this community or another community, most of my clients don't want to back up to buildings like that or apartments, and unless the price of the homes go down, then they would obviously consider it because it's a little less expensive. So that's all, but I appreciate
Hector,
the time.
Thank you for being here, and you heard the website.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, be sure to
thank you.
sign up for notifications. And you probably are already aware of what the state's doing, Hector.
Yeah.
2 cities with their zoning mandates, and our current legislation does not want single-family homes. They want stack and pack, and they have implemented laws to where if we don't comply, they could fine us $50,000 a month. We don't want it either. We don't want it either, trust me. There have been communities, and our city attorney has some slides I think he's going to show, but there have been communities that have tried to fight it and go against the state, and it has cost them millions and millions of dollars. It's just, we have to really think about who we vote for. We're putting these people in office at the state level, and they're the ones that are making these decisions and forcing it down our throats. So you don't like what's going on, please change what you do when you vote.
100%.
So important.
I agree.
Thank you, Hector, for
Thank you.
being here. Okay, those are the only requests to speak that I have during public communication. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council? Yes, sir. Please come up and state your name.
Hi, I'm Greg Duncan, and I am a member of the Fern Schaefer Proposed Development Facebook group. We now have over 390 members who are citizens that are very concerned with the development of this area. We feel Ordinance 2024-003 will affect the Fern Schaefer project. If the city is going to amend the ordinance, now is the chance for the council to change the building height from 55 to 45 feet. The city should not, or should, prohibit any residential development over 3 stories in a nearby residential
Yeah, I
neighborhood.
think, Greg, your comments may be better heard under item number 17.
Well, I was told that during this.
What do you think?
It does seem as though there are comments related to the proposed project, but certainly you're welcome to speak during item number 17 if it's
Very
specific to the housing element and ordinance.
Well,
hopefully
in quoting the document, that would be housing element, not that, because that project is not before us.
This is not about that project per se. This is about.
Why don't you hold your comments to item number 17 so that it's part of the record?
Okay.
Would that be okay?
I only have a paragraph to go.
Well, but I
Can't
want
we
to.
convert it over?
I don't know. Things get complicated.
Pardon?
Things get complicated.
I know, and it's only a few more words.
Go ahead.
Okay, hopefully the council will hear how frustrated the citizens are with this project, which is allowed by the ordinance 2023-008. If the city is going to amend the 2023 ordinance, now is the perfect time to try to improve the zoning code to prohibit the Fern Schaefer project as currently proposed. And I also just want to submit, and I don't know if you have seen, some graphics that somewhat show what a 4 and 5 story complex does to a community. And I'll just submit these over here.
The city clerk.
And if you guys can just take a moment to look at them.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council? Yes, ma'am. And again, if it's specific to that project, we need you to come to the workshop so your comments are part of the record, okay? Please. Go ahead.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sonia Sunset Castillo, and I am here, first of all, thanks to Greg Duncan and the Facebook page, I was made aware of the proposed development that will be taking place on Euclid and Schaefer. And we feel as residents, it's very important to hear from the community as far as our concerns with that type of development. I've lived in Chino for over 20 years and live in close proximity to that area. And as a parent, as well as a Chino resident, my concern specifically is apartment complexes bringing in individuals that is going to influx the current elementary schools at Cattle, as well as Rhodes Elementary School. And at the Stater Brothers Shopping Center, it's already difficult to try and find parking, especially given the College Park development. Chino has expanded so much that we really need that particular area to be more commercial properties, as any type of development involving restaurants, Trader Joe's, CVS Pharmacy. The community has expanded so much that we really need another shopping center there versus an apartment complex. And I'm also very concerned, and if it's low residential apartment complexes or not, the pride of ownership we all have here in Chino, we're concerned about theft. We understand that in the College Park development, there was apartments that were built, and there has been theft taking place there. So we're just very concerned, and we look forward to hearing more about this proposed development, and that Chino residents do have a say, and hoping that we look into developing a shopping center. We really need it. We have grown so much, and a Trader Joe's, CVS Pharmacy, restaurant drive-throughs, we really need that, not more storage facilities and more warehouses. I feel like I live in an industrial area, and when I purchased at the Reserve over 20 years ago, I was really looking forward to Chino developing for its residences and not necessarily as much with the compliance. I understand. That's why we all need to make our vote count so that we can make the changes necessary. But we also love our community, and we want to stand for all Chino residences with these concerns, especially with the Unified School District and the number of students already at an influx. But thank you very much for your time, and thanks for all that you do in hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to go to the workshop so that your comments are part of the record.
Yes.
Okay, because that item isn't being heard tonight. So it's not going to be part of the official record. Okay, so please, please go to the website that Linda talked about and make sure you attend that workshop and make your comments be heard, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that has anything different to say? Well, I want to thank all of you for, yes, sir? No, wait till you come to the microphone.
My name's Alexander Cuizon. I'm just going to keep this short. I'm not really a public speaker. I know this is not on the record, but this is a record for my fellow Chino residents and my family. So I'm up here speaking I believe in our behalf. I do live, my backyard is that development. I do live on Joy Street, which is 20 yards from when they're going to be building it. So we enjoy our time in our backyard, looking out to the sun or daylight or whatever trees we have. And I can imagine going out with my family on these walks and staring at these big buildings. Again, this is, I don't know what to say. I don't even know if it was approved yet or not. I don't know what's going on. I just know if you live there, I'm pretty sure you guys would not just what happened to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. And again, please be sure to go to the workshop. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, and thank you for bringing light to the residents on this proposed plan. You've done an amazing job, and I appreciate it. I may not live bumped up as the last speaker, but I do live in that track, and I've been there over 30 years. And I was there when the dairies were on both sides, and have seen it grown, and Stater Brothers and everything. And I
give us your name, please.
I'm sorry, Deanna Mejia.
Okay.
I apologize. But it is a great concern. I think everything that all the previous speakers have made mention, I won't repeat them, but it is of great concern. Parking. I'm sure the overflow of parking is going to flow onto the residents that are in that housing tract. That wouldn't be, something that I would want. There's already the issue, and I understand, homes that are creating ADUs, extra housing within their homes, and we already have that as an issue in that community there. This would just add another element to it, and I realize again that this is not a record, and we'll be there at the next meeting to address the same things that we bring before you today. But thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for your time today. And first of all, I want to greatly appreciate and say thank you for not holding this measure on today and for voting on this today. That was the reason why I came, because I thought it was, and I'm glad that it's not. But I do have a request for you. I know that this is
sweetie.
Sorry, I thought I said that. Lisa Mesri, sorry. Fellow realtor. I'm also a city resident for many, many years, and I'm a public servant as well. So I do have a request for you, though, at the workshop. If you could, I know this is a state mandated ordinance, and I would like to have some information on more of what the state is mandating us at that informational workshop, as well as what we are doing to address that. Are we having collaborations with other cities to kind of combat that and go back to the state legislature and say, hey, this is not feasible, this is not working, let's work together. I'd like to know what those kind of conversations are happening as well.
Well, Lisa, I wish we could. Fred's going to show us some information, so be sure to, after this meeting, be sure to go on the website and get the information that he's going to show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Lisa. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Maria Torres. I am an original owner of the Joy Street that backs the developments that are being planned. We did go, myself and a few more of the attendees tonight actually live on that street, and we were at the last community meeting to find out about it. We did receive letters telling us about it. It seemed like our whole neighborhood did not, only just a certain section, so I'm not sure how we can increase that to have better communication. The other biggest concern is that in our development alone, we have 308 residences, my understanding, and in a section of less than a third of our development, they're looking at putting at 273 residents in that area, plus commercial, plus the storage, all of this. And that is in less than that because there's a 3-acre parcel that's right in between, and that's backed up against my fence. And so I know 20 years ago when I moved into Chino and we had it was rezoned back then for residential commercial, from commercial. They wanted to go 30 density.
30
and that's,
per acre.
Yes, per acre, and that was high. Many of us have solar panels now that if they go that high, we don't know if that's gonna affect that or not, depending on the building. You know, the view is one thing, the strawberry fields, I mean, all of that. I came from a high-density area to Chino, and I'm so blessed to move here, that God brought me here. And so to now kind of be cornered into that, it's very difficult, very difficult. We're concerned also that the overflow for parking already for ourselves, we're very limited, and so sometimes we have to park across the street once in a while when we have company visit, and we've had cars towed because of it. It's just, we're already at a dense city for us now that our kids have grown up and there's a few extra cars and more people living in the area. So I can only imagine what the overflow will cause in addition to where we're at now. So we really, I get that you're held by the state, totally get that, but I also am hoping that there can be some collaboration to try to maybe make some other considerations or definitely some serious talk as to see what other unincorporated areas could consider this type of development versus that being right in our backyard. Because I mean, I already am to the point where I can reach out and touch my neighbor next to me.
I know.
So can you imagine behind, so food for thought. Thank you
Maria,
for your
many
time.
of us moved here years and years ago to get away from density and to have room. And it's what the state is cramming down cities' throats is absolutely heartbreaking. And they don't care. They repeatedly are taking away local control. They want to determine what's going to happen in communities. They don't want local control at all. And it's, we don't like this either. We don't like it either. And trust me, we're trying to do everything that we can, but at the same time, if we don't comply, we also can't afford the $50,000 a month fine.
Right.
And it's, if we don't comply with their demands and adopt this general plan or this housing element, they can actually come down and say, you're gonna build this amount of density right where we want you to build it. It could be right here at City Hall. It could be anywhere in this community. It could be infill. And you can't, there's nothing that you can do about it. It's, again, we need to change Sacramento. We need to change the people that represent us, because they get to Sacramento and they're just oblivious to what's happening in their own local jurisdictions. They don't care. It's heartbreaking. Please, 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 be sure to attend the workshop and make these comments part of the official record.
Absolutely.
Please do that.
Yeah. And thank you for explaining how much of the state mandate is there and
Oh, it's horrible.
The limitation. We
Fred's going to
appreciate
cover a little bit about that, and Linda has some information on our website also.
Great.
We would love for everybody to just absolutely drown Sacramento in protest letters. Communities like Huntington Beach have tried. They have been sued by the state. It is costing them millions of dollars. It's just heartbreaking.
Is that address available? Is there a way to get the address where we could send letters to try
Oh,
to?
yeah, I think we've got our
Have that?
legislative,
Okay.
yeah, it's on the
Okay, great.
website as well.
All right, great.
Thank you
so
very
much
much
for your
being
time.
here. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna ask Fred.
Can I comment just on something?
Yeah.
I'd just like to address all the residents that are here tonight. I want to thank you for coming to speak your mind about the project. I don't want anybody sitting in here, when I look into the room, I see former coworkers, police officers I worked with, people that know me. Every person in this meeting tonight probably knows somebody up here personally in some capacity. I want you to know that we're chomping at the bit to talk to you about this project, but we can't tonight. The law called the Brown Act forbids us from engaging you in thoughtful discussion about this project tonight because it's not properly agendized. So if you're sitting there looking at us thinking, why aren't they speaking to us about it? Why aren't they commenting? Please don't think that. We're up here having to actually bite our tongues from engaging you because it's improper. The other thing I want to talk to you about that I can talk to you tonight about is procedure. Tonight in the public meeting, thank you for coming to give your comments. There will be another public meeting about this project that is very important for you to attend, as the mayor has said this evening. But more importantly, after those public meetings are done, your feedback should be taken by that developer and also presented at what's called the Planning Commission meeting that will talk about this project. And as much as you were passionate tonight about coming to the city council meeting, it's imperative, as I explained to a couple people tonight, for you to attend the Planning Commission meeting on this issue. Because the fact of the matter is, if this project is approved procedurally by the Planning Commission, it will not come back to the city council. You will not have another governmental meeting where you can come and talk about this. If it is rejected by the Planning Commission, if I'm not mistaken, and Fred can correct me if I am, it will then come back to the city council in an appeal process. But it is imperative that you go to the Planning Commission meeting in addition to the public meetings to share your feedback, because it's still what we call in the public meeting informational gathering stage, wherein amendments or revisions can be made to the project and hopefully presented to the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to talk about why we're not commenting on the project tonight to you, as well as procedure to help you navigate the process. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to make those comments.
Fred, I'd like you to go through your presentation, please.
Yes, and I have specific slides that I think are more relevant to item number 17. But just to build on Mayor Pro Tem's point, I know, Mayor, you mentioned that the public testimony that is provided today is not part of the official record. So Mayor Pro Tem really explained it accurately, that to the extent the project is considered before the Planning Commission, that public record, any testimony that's provided is part of a public record. So that has legal significance. So for example, if the Planning Commission decides to reject the project or deny it unless the developer accepts some conditions that the developer is not prepared to accept, that developer can then appeal the matter to the city council. The city council legally can only consider the information that was presented at that Planning Commission. So the testimony, as has been mentioned, at that time is the critical time. But even before that time, the developer intends to hold a workshop where I understand some reactions from the community are going to be sought, some feedback. So that may be a time in a less formal setting for persons who are obviously passionate about this issue to at least chime in on certain things that could be a concern. I heard issues like height and the like, so that may be an opportunity where the developer can actually be approached and explain what the project is and isn't, and you can have that informal discussion as well as a more formal testimony at a Planning Commission.
Linda, I would like to change the agenda, and I would like to pull item 17 up now, since we have the audience here. So I want to take item 17 out of order.
If there's no objection by the council, you can proceed.
Does anyone object to that? Okay, then we're going to jump to item number 17 and then come back to the other items after. Item 17, amendment of the 21-29 housing element update and introduction of ordinance number 2024-003, ZOA-PL 23-0133. This is to approve resolution number 2024-004 for the adoption of the amendments to the City of Chino 2021-2029 housing element required by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and approve the introduction of ordinance number 2024-003. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report from our principal planner, Mike Hitz.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for this meeting tonight. Yes, so the housing element, tonight we're looking at some updates to the housing element and the zoning ordinance related to the housing element implementation. So I kind of just want to mostly go through sort of a timeline of how we got here today. So the housing element was initiated in 2020. The plan development, and we did neighborhood outreach, that we developed the plan. In December of 2021, the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval of the first version of the housing element. Following that meeting in January 2022, City Council approved and adopted locally the housing element, the 2021-2029 housing element. That had to come, when that went out to HCD for their review and comment, and they had some comments on some amendments.
Mike, explain what HCD is.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the California Department of Housing and Community Development. They're the ones who oversee and review all of the housing element documents for compliance with state law. In October of 2022, the Planning Commission had to review the amendments that were required by HCD, and the revised housing element was recommended to approval to the City Council. Therefore, in January 2023, the City Council approved the updated 2021-2029 housing element with those amendments that were provided. In December of 2023, the Planning Commission reviewed the revised housing element and zoning ordinance amendments and recommended approval. Actually, in between this time here, we also had to update or draft the ordinance related to the development standards for the housing element. That's what you're reviewing tonight to need to be reviewed. Those ordinances were drafted to create the development standard we call the objective standards to allow for the development of these types of developments in our overlay district areas. In February 2024, beginning of this year, we were going back to the City Council to review the revisions to the ordinance. We had 2 public hearings and a study session in February regarding the proposed amendments to the housing element and overlay district affordable housing zoning ordinance. The council had 2 primary concerns at that time about following the amendments to the ordinance. The by right approval was one that required that if 20% of the units in a project are affordable to lower income households on the following sites designated in the sites inventory of the 2020-2029 housing element update. So that was really related to non-vacant sites that had been included in prior housing element planning period and not approved to develop a portion of the city's housing needs. So the goal there was saying, hey, we have these other sites. Those sites should be easier to develop because they had been in previous cycles. As of today, we haven't had anyone come in and try to develop any of those sites. One of the other concerns was on the mixed-use development sites. In our ordinance, we had some requirements for a minimum amount of retail be developed. 10% if it's not near another commercial site, or 5% if it is. As going through this review with HCD, it was determined that was in violation of state law, where it states that we have to allow for up to 100% residential uses on those mixed-use sites. That doesn't mean a developer can't put retail. It just means that we can't require them to have a minimum percentage. But we can require that at least 50% of the site be developed with residential units, meaning half of it could be retail square footage and half of it could be residential. The council had some concerns about that, wanted us to get back with HCD and our housing element ad hoc committee to see if there's anything we could do to work with HCD to maybe not have to make those amendments, not make those changes. So in April of 2024, the Housing Element Ad Hoc Committee met with Paul McDougall, who's a representative from HCD. He's the manager kind of overseeing the review of our housing element and our ordinance. They committed to exploring a few things. They looked at potentially looking at other sites in the city to remove from the commercial sites and to add to those sites. increasing the density on the overlay, the affordable housing sites which don't have a retail component. So on those sites, you would say go taller, go bigger, more dense, and then maybe potentially remove sites from the mixed-use overlay district sites or remove commercial sites from the district. So staff had provided the information to HCD related to Measure M, which is our growth measure that requires that if a parcel of land is converted from commercial to residential, or it's upzoned from a lower density residential to a higher density residential, requires a vote of the people. And that's what Measure Y was. Measure Y was what went out to the public and was voted and approved the affordable housing sites and the mixed-use overlay sites. That was approved back in June of 2022. So we provided all that information to Paul McDooley, HCD, for him to review to see if there was anything in the state law and anything within our regulations related to Measure M, Measure Y that would allow us to do any of these proposed changes. So back in September 2024, we met again with Paul McDougall from HCD, and he determined that due to the limitations of Measure M, meaning any changes would require another vote, and Measure Y limited the sites because those specific sites were only selected as a part of approval of Measure Y that was approved by the voters. The proposed options would be unable to be obtained without another Measure M vote for either replacing of inventory sites to other sites in the city or to increase the density on existing affordable housing sites. So ultimately, HCD confirmed that the ordinance number 2024-003 would need to be adopted in the format presented in previous public hearings back in February. And this is due to constraints of requirements of state law requiring that we have to be in compliance with state law to get our housing elements certified. So in October 2024, just last month, we had another study session with the City Council to discuss the HCD's meetings with the ad hoc committee, the outcomes of those meetings, and the challenges related to having a non-certified housing element. Council directed staff to bring the housing element and zoning code amendments back to the City Council to this meeting for a public hearing for adoption. With all that back and forth we've had with HCD and communication with City Council, staff recommends the City Council adopt the proposed amendments to the housing element and zoning ordinance to be in compliance with state law to allow for the certification of the housing element by HCD. And I know Fred wants to get into a couple, some legislation items and some case law that we've had to go through. You want me to do it? Yeah.
Are they in the? So as I find these, there are a few case examples, and I know some of the concern is, well, why don't cities, I heard one speaker mention, why don't cities band together and try to challenge the state on some of these requirements that force housing developments that may be objectionable. The short answer is cities have tried. Cities have tried up and down the states. Cities have banded together, challenged both the HCD on the requirement for cities to develop or plan for the development of a certain number of housing units, these RENA allocation numbers that Mr. Hitz just described. So I provided some of the case examples. The first one is a little less relevant to what we're looking at right now, but the message is the same, that when a city tried to prevent a developer from proceeding to develop a housing project, that the developer argued under the new housing legislation that's called the Housing Accountability Act that came into place at the beginning of 2018 and has since been amended, and at every turn the amendments limit the discretion of cities to deny housing projects. And this is one example where the developer used the provisions of that Housing Accountability Act to argue that the city, in this case, was the city of Berkeley, was unable to deny a project, and that the developer had the right to secure all of the development approvals by right without having discretion by the city to consider whether or not the project was in the right location, the right density, and had the right attributes. Ultimately,
So let me interrupt you just for clarity. So this developer came in, picked a piece of land, wanted to build 260 units. City said, no, it doesn't fit, whatever. He could have, that developer could have come in with that proposal regardless of what the zoning was or anything else. Because it's a by right, correct?
It's a by right, but the zoning had, in that particular case, and the Housing Accountability Act does allow for some zoning considerations. However, to the extent it limits the density beyond what state law allows or prevents the development of some affordable units and compels the city to consider deviations from its standards, that's where the city runs afoul of this legislation. And so in this lawsuit, the city was ordered to pay $4 million in damages and provide the developer the authorization to develop the units.
So, Fred, for example, some of the comments from the residents are, in our housing element that we currently have now, why don't we put in some changes to it where, like, for example, that the buildings can't be that high next to a residential location like we currently have now, but they can be higher, let's say, in a more commercial area. Is there any way we can make those type of changes to where it addresses, if it's gonna butt up to homes, the buildings can't be 5 stories high, but if it's of a development that's going like similar to the one that was proposed across the street from Lucille's, they can go 5 stories high because it doesn't impact any of the residents around it. Is there anything in our current element that we're looking at right now that we could put in place to address those concerns that some of the residents currently have? Is that possible?
I can defer to your planning staff, but I know that there are provisions for setbacks when a building is adjacent to a residential property line so that the top floors are set back. Is that an accurate description?
Yes. Mayor, council members, in drafting the housing element and the overlay standards, there was a whole analysis of trying to develop standards that would facilitate the units that are identified, the 26 per acre in this case. In doing so, it's a general standard, so we provide these standards for building heights, setbacks, landscaping, and those sort of things. So while the standards are general, they're there to accommodate development all the 91 sites in the city, all the overlay sites in the city. So some sites, the way I explained it, some sites are larger than others. In the larger ones, there's room to massage. There's certain sites that are pretty big, that the height may not be necessary. So you work with that developer, you work with staff, you kind of work with the community, you kind of try to massage that development that makes sense for everybody. But the concern would be to simply just chop height, for example, is that we don't know how it's going to impact some of the other 91 sites that are smaller. There's much smaller sites that are on our overlay that say they're acre and a half. Can they fit the 26 that's mandated on those sites? And I don't recall all of the acreages, but that's the concern, is if we just simply chop, then we don't know if it'll accommodate other sites when they come in to develop, which we're required to do. We need to accommodate that, provide the standards for that. So without an analysis of some kind to try to determine that, it's very difficult to say just chop would make sense. Some areas maybe, but I think that's one thing. We don't know how it'll affect the other sites. The other thing too is the changes we make now, just keep in mind, council, that we would have to send back to HCD to make sure that they're okay with the changes we're applying to the overlay standards, because they're gonna say can't be any impediments. You have to accommodate housing. You have to make sure that the ability for these property owners and developers to do the density that's outlined in the housing element. So some of those are the concerns that staff would have.
I have a question.
In a bit. Yes.
Just to understand this, Warren, are we able to put a cap on the height of some of these buildings, like Vernon Schaefer, for instance? Are we able to make it 3 stories rather than 4 stories? Are we able to make an amendment in our zoning code for that reason?
So I could answer part of the question, and I think it's important not to reference any particular project, but for a
I'm just using that as an example.
Right, so just in general, so long as you can satisfy the density requirements that Warren just mentioned. So a developer is entitled to develop up to a certain maximum number of units per acre. If that can be accomplished without the height, then you can work with the developer and require that.
What is, on these types of sites that we're forced to zone, what is the minimum density that is required by the state per acre?
26, Mayor. to the acre.
Maximum.
26?
It's 26 to 30.
26 to
units. The
30.
minimum-
So what you're saying is if you limit the height and it's a small site, you might not be able to get that many units on there, which would mean then the developer could sue us because he can't build 26 to 30 units?
But at the same time, so hypothetically speaking, the site, for example, would either shrink in potentially commercial or the storage, because it would have to make
Well, don't
the
talk,
housing
you
portion.
can't talk about this site.
For an example, right?
For example.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Hypothetically.
we don't want to get in trouble.
in the answer to the council member's question, yes, the council has the authority to make amendments. The concern would be, would the amendment facilitate development of the overlay sites, which are we mandated to do? The other thing too is we'd have to have HCD also approve the amendments that the council puts at restrictions. So no matter what it is, if you change building height, you try to change other aspects that would limit the development, we would have to go through that review process. But the council does, to answer your question, can make changes. It's just we would have to,
And I could add,
Can we, I know that we've got this umbrella of threat over us, that we've got to get this thing adopted, right? Otherwise, the state could come down with a hammer. And I'm guessing we've pushed this out now for what, 3 years, 4 years?
Yes.
We keep trying to revise it and push it out and push it out. Are we in danger if we keep pushing it, that they're gonna drop that hammer?
What I will say is that every day you don't have this housing element approved is an opportunity for a developer to come in and not have to comply with basically any standards and impose the largest development that is authorized under the legislation. What the housing element does, it actually allows you to have some of these tools to provide some leverage over the development. I know we've worked with HCD for a long time on this ordinance, and there is a sentiment that these are sort of the most we could push as far as limiting height, limiting how far development can go into the setback, et cetera. Because what HCD looks at is, can you accommodate the number of units per acre that are that state law authorizes developers to put into a site? And so these contours, including height and all of these components, yielded what is this particular ordinance.
Okay, so one more question. So I'm going to go against what I've just cautioned my fellow council members on. So, for example, if we don't have the housing element adopted, can that developer kind of throw out the plan that he has right now and just come in and jam in even more units, even higher?
Potentially, you've lost the control. And a development that comes in, such as the one that has been testified to or spoken about, can come in whether or not the council approves this document tonight.
And not even comply with what he's already suggested, just come in with something even worse?
I would not speak to that, but.
But they could.
Theoretically.
So how many acres is that?
Go ahead. How many acres? Well, we can't.
Yeah.
We
I
can't
think
talk
it's-
that site.
Can I comment, Mayor?
One more question, Karen. Can we, if we adopted this to hold off the state, can we come back and then still do revisions and go to HCD?
Yes,
And then that would take the threat of them coming down with the hammer right now?
correct. And that's actually what they suggested. To the extent that some of the sites that were the subject of the Measure M vote are not right for the council or your community, you can revisit that. Obviously, it would require another Measure M vote if needed, but HCD had no concern at all with that. And state law authorizes you to amend a housing element.
So we could adopt it, get the state off of our back, and then look at what we could modify. if it's possible to modify anything. Okay, Karen?
So that wasn't my understanding. For the members of the audience, it's Councilmember Burton and I that sit on the Ad hoc Housing Committee. We have been working on this for 3 years now, and I think we are at risk of violating not having our housing element adopted. I can attest that at least for myself, I'm not a fan of the state mandates for the housing element, which is why we have, like, there was a couple questions, like, what are we doing to fight, to push back? There's been an infinite amount of meetings in order to try and get the best housing element that we can. I guess my question tonight is, does our housing element, I get why there are things to be flexible in the element, Warren, based off what you said, based off of lot size, right, or project. Is there adequate protections for the city in our element to allow for the council to say, hey, no, in this particular site, we don't want the project to be over 3 stories. In this particular site, it's okay for it to be 4 or 5 stories because of the location. Is that adequate in this element right now? Because I don't completely understand it. Or to the mayor's statement, is it feasible for the council to potentially consider adopting the ordinance tonight and then saying, okay, immediately, because there was comments from a resident by the name of Ziegler that I thought were very insightful to the housing element sent to the members of the council. Are there protections for us where we can say, hey, this particular project, we're not satisfied based off where it's at and based off the size of the project. We don't feel like it should be a 4 or 5 story project. Does that exist in our version of the element?
No, ma'am. What it does, so there's some distinctions in the overlay standards between the affordable housing overlay, which is the all residential one, and the mixed use overlay project. But in terms of site specific, like if it's located here, it doesn't go into that detail. It sets standards up for the overlays, for the mixed use, and the affordable. They're relatively close, but I think there's some standards that are a little different in each. But site specific, it does not allow, like if you live in this case and you're next to medium density, how would you develop? Or if you're next to low density over here, how would you develop? It doesn't go into that much detail.
So my only fear in that, and with that comment in, is in dealing with people from HCD who still wouldn't meet with us in person, and we're still meeting with them in Sacramento, like on Zoom meetings, very frustrating, is that we could adopt the element and go back for the amendment, and basically what they're gonna say is, yeah, no. Because that's essentially what we've been up against. And Councilmember Burton can say that, yeah, that's nice that you guys would like to have that, but yeah, probably not. Because that's kind of been what it has been for us when we go and meet with them.
Okay, you want to go ahead with the presentation? I'm going to ask for public comments after we're done.
Thank you, Mayor. So then this is one where the developer actually sued, a resident, sued the city of Clovis over the housing element. And they alleged that they were not compliant with the legislation, the housing element law. The trial court agreed with the plaintiff. The city was directed to enforce or comply with its obligation to adopt a new housing element that was compliant with state law. The city appealed it, but essentially had lost all of the effort. So ultimately, the direction was that rather than continue to fight and potentially incur additional attorney's fees, the city agreed on a settlement that included a $1.8 million payment and essentially the obligation to proceed and adopt the housing element. So as much as the city was reluctant to adopt a housing element that HCD found would be compliant with state law, when challenged, the city was forced to back down. There is this organization called the Californians for Home Ownership that essentially has filed lawsuits against the city of Beverly Hills in this case. You know, these are other examples. There's city of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and these are all various cities that they've proceeded to sue. And the lawsuits all allege that the failure of the particular cities to adopt a compliant housing element is in violation of state law, and they are seeking damages, and as a result, the cities could potentially face not only the damages and having to comply with state law and adopt the housing elements, but they continue to face developers that can come in and implement projects through what's called the builder's remedy that you mentioned, Mayor. So the point of all these slides is that there are these organizations that are looking for opportunities to challenge cities that haven't complied with this legal requirement. And, as lawyers, we like to see where there's a balance of, lawsuits going one way or the other. In these cases, all of the lawsuits seem to go against the public agencies, and to the extent they try to push back on their obligation to impose these requirements. And the new housing element law requires a tremendous number of housing units to be provided for. You have to account for them through this regional housing needs allocation. So as much as cities have tried to push back, they just haven't been successful.
Fred, could you please explain in layperson's terms the term builder's remedy? That's actually a nice term for penalty to cities.
Yeah. So the builder's remedy, and it has some particular provisions. In layman's terms, if a city doesn't have a compliant housing element approved, and what does that mean? Well, every 8 years, cities have to update their housing elements and comply with all the new legislation. One of the pieces of legislation is having this regional housing needs allocation. So the state comes up with numbers of housing that it believes areas are required to implement, and then there's an organization here, we have SCAG, that takes those numbers that are allocated to the Southern California region that SCAG controls. They allocate it to the various
Explain what
cities.
SCAG is.
The Southern California Association of Governments. So it basically includes several counties, including the county of San Bernardino. They take the numbers that the state gives them of all of these housing units that cities have to plan for and allocate them based on various factors, your land use, your ability to develop these units, whether or not you have what they call high quality transportation corridors. So if you have readily available transportation, then the theory is you can develop more dense housing because there's presumably less of a parking problem. All of that needs to be revisited every 8 years, and cities have to take that allocation, build it into their housing element, and adopt these housing element updates. If they don't, that is when they are at risk of these various lawsuits.
So explain builder's remedy.
So builder's remedy is when you don't have these housing elements updates approved. A developer who is interested in constructing, oftentimes they would like to do as dense of a product as possible because that's, for financial reasons, the more units generally means the higher income. They can build projects in your jurisdiction without asking for permission from the city. Because their argument is, and it's legislation, you don't have a compliant housing element, so you can't apply standards upon me and my development. I can come in, and so long as I meet certain affordability requirements, so 20% low income or 100% moderate income, I can put in this oftentimes very dense product without the Planning Commission or the City Council having a word and a say into whether that is allowable or rejecting it.
So I'm sorry, the missing part of this too is part of this component that Fred didn't comment on that you need to know is in this 8-year housing cycle element, our regional housing needs assessment, which you commonly hear as the RHNA number, that's assigned to different cities based off of population and land, is 6,900 units, just over that. So think of that just for a second, over an 8-year period, us trying to figure out places we are to allow for that many houses to be developed in this community. Now, that doesn't mean they'll be developed in this housing cycle, because we don't control how people come in and develop them. But I think for the public's understanding here right now, that's a challenging number to swallow. So that's why we went to different locations and looked for areas where we could allocate those numbers, including putting a buffer to areas, because check it out, some of those have to be affordable, right? And when these developers come in, they do a percentage of them, a small percentage of them, in affordability, but the rest of them go for market rate. So you could have a 200-unit apartment complex, but only 20% of it is affordable. So we're not going to get credit for all 200 units of the apartment complex. We're only going to get credit for 20 of them, right? So when that happens, then it becomes this kind of game where we have to go back because we start losing our numbers because we just lost 180 units of our what we thought was going to be affordable. And the state says, well, you've lost 180 units here, so you have to have a buffer. It becomes this very difficult and challenging shell game, quite frankly, to start assigning these affordability units to these locations. So I think I'm so happy you guys are here tonight, because it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, here's some of the things we're up against. We start looking at these numbers, which seem mind-boggling and unattainable. And even our staff in the state says, yeah, you probably can't do it. We know you can't do it, but you just have to make it available to do. And that's what all of us up here struggle with. Like, well, if we can't attain it, or each time we develop something, it gets shifted to another location, how is that serving anybody's purpose? So that is really the thing your entire council has struggled with in this whole, the 8th cycle of our housing element update, which, as you can see, in just a few years, we get to do it all over again with different numbers. It's been a challenge for us in explaining that. So if there's anything I've missed in that, Fred, please feel free to add, or Kurt, because you've sat in these same meetings that I have. So, or Mark, or others, I'm sorry.
I think just the other question would be, like, let's say, for example, if we have a location in our city that's 10 acres, and they decide to do the maximum of 30 per acre, and they want to build a 300 apartment complex. And it's in a mixed-use overlay where it can be 100% residential, so that's already been told to us by the state. But is there a minimum that they have to do commercial on an overlay? There isn't, right?
No, they can do 100% housing, even though it's classified as
With the
mixed
builder's
use.
remedy, I believe that's correct.
So when,
Well, with the way the ordinance would be amended, yeah, we were required to allow them to do 100% residential with no retail component to be consistent with state law.
So then if we look at it, let's say, I guess the residents are a lot of them are concerned because in order for a project, let's say on a 10-acre parcel to pencil, they want to do, let's say, some commercial there. But in order for them to say that there's enough rooftops there to sustain that, they need to build a larger complex because part of that 10 acres is going to be taken up by commercial. Is there anything that the Planning Commission can look at to say, well, we can't allow this because, you want to do this much commercial and therefore it's pushing this thing up so high? Is there anything in that element or anything that the Planning Commission, when they sit down and look at projects, that gives them the ability to say no? Or is this something that a developer can come in and say, no, I want to do this, but I have the right to build this many, and I'm not going to take up all the acres, but is there anything there where the Planning Commission can look at it and say, no, you're going to have to build more. If you want that many residential in that area, then you got to build more residential, maybe not so big of a commercial area.
What the state law says is they have to have at least 50% of the site has to be developed with residential. So they could go up to 50% commercial. So then between 50 and 100% of the site could be residential. So they could definitely have a retail component if they wanted to, as long as they don't go above the 50% maximum. The density does allow in our code, it goes up to 30%. 30 units to the acre. So we have a range of 26 to 30, and also the range of the affordability increases with the density. So at 30 units to the acre, our requirement is that they have to 13% of the units have to be set aside as affordable.
So I have a real quick question. What if it's a quality of life issue because of the height of a building? And if the height of a building blocks out the sun, for instance, into somebody's backyard, you definitely have a quality of life issue. Is there a way that that can be modified or prohibited based on that type of issue? That the planning commission could stop that from happening? If somebody could look directly into somebody's backyard, or gee, maybe the sun's blocking, or the building's blocking solar panels that are powering a home, that, you know, they depend on that energy level. It's a quality of life issue. Are we able to make a modification?
So a lot of the rights that cities have under the Housing Accountability Act, the legislation that has imposed a lot of these obligations, focus on design more so than the ability to approve or deny a project. So there may be an opportunity to tier back some of the higher levels if it's adjacent to another residential project, like a single-family home. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a developer would have the ability to push for the number of units that the law allows. So there could be some design elements, but that's ultimately what's hanging over our head, that they have this authorization to build up to 26 units if it's not affordable, or more if there are affordable units.
Any other questions? Okay, Fred, did you have more? Karen, go ahead.
So if we were to add, let's say, something on our ordinance, let's say, hey, let's say on a hypothetical, let's say, okay, it's not in our housing element, so we'll just talk about it. The 5-acre parcel that's vacant in College Park that originally was supposed to be a school, but they decided not to build a school. Okay, and in that 5-acre parcel, we were to build 30 units per that 5-acre parcel, and we're looking now at a residential or apartment building. And let's say the developer came in and said, hey, I not only want to do the apartment building, but I want to do some commercial there. Let's say it was an overlay. But in order for this to happen, now my building has to be 6 stories tall in order for me to be able to accommodate that in a shopping center in this small little area. Do we have the ability to say, at least the planning commission say, well, you know what, probably a shopping center isn't going to work there, or not as big of a shopping center is going to work there, because in order for you to stack up that many people, your building can't be so high, and therefore it's either all going to be residential or it's going to be a very, very small commercial. Do they have that ability to? So what I'm saying is, does a developer just have the ability to come in and say, hey, I'm going to build this, 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 and this is how tall it's going to be? And because really the only thing that they have is, if it's 10 acres, they only have 300 units they can build on there. So depending on how they want to spread that out on 10 acres is really the only thing that they have legally assigned to them. But if they want to add additional amenities to make it pencil or be more profitable, like let's say they want to add more commercial or storage or what have you, that doesn't necessarily have to be approved by the planning commission. The planning commission can say no to that and just say, no, this doesn't fit here. Or do they not have that ability to?
As to the commercial uses, the answer is yes. As far as asking for 6 stories, that's beyond what this proposed ordinance would authorize. It does call for 50-foot maximum. There is an opportunity to go to 55 feet, but there is a note in the ordinance that says the upper stories above 40 feet shall be set back an additional 7 feet from the interior property line if the project is adjacent to a residential zoning district. So there's some accommodation, but the leverage would be more against the commercial use than.
So a planning commission could tell them no on a, let's say, on this 10-acre parcel that we're hypothetically talking about. Planning Commission could say, no, we don't like this, it doesn't fit. You know, you can build a 300-unit apartment complex, but you can't build all this additional things that's gonna drive this building taller.
And I would eventually guess that we wouldn't even bring that before the commission because it wouldn't meet all the objective standards. It'd be too tall. That's one of the code limits, is the height. So they would have to fit within those standards of development.
No, I think what he's saying is the planning commission could say,
No,
yeah, no, because we don't like the height of the residential, and you're gonna have to diminish the section of commercial, right? Is that what you're hearing you say, Mark?
yeah.
But the point is, it wouldn't comply with your standards per the ordinance that's before you today, if they sought a 6-story building to accommodate the
Well,
commercial.
just say it's a four-story building, and it just didn't fit in compliance. Could the planning commission sit there and hypothetically, let's say, if on this piece of property, if all of a sudden it forced the building to be 4 stories, and in order for them to be able to accommodate commercial and, let's say, storage, could the planning commission come back and say, no, that height is too tall to be next to a residential area, so you have to either do away with some of your commercial or some of your storage, but, so in order for the building to come down so that you spread out your units over a larger area of the acreage, or does it have to accept what a developer brings them? It's just the units that they have to be within compliance with, right?
Correct. So I go back, my original answer is they have a lot more leverage on the commercial.
So even if we pass this,
They being the planning commission.
so even if we pass this, and let's say a project didn't meet or wasn't compliant with the standards around a residential area, the planning commission doesn't necessarily need to accept it because of this housing element. It just has to accept the number of units that are assigned to this area. And if that doesn't, if spreading it out on a larger scale and lowering buildings doesn't work for the developer, they don't necessarily have to accept it with everything that the developer wants to put on there.
That's correct.
Okay.
But do we have, I'm sorry, do we have to have justification?
Yep. So to deny a project, like a commercial component to the housing project that was in Councilmember Lucio's example, we do have to make certain findings. Will it be detrimental to adjacent properties? Is it consistent with the zoning? Is it have adequate access and safety issues? So there are your zoning code has specific findings, and if you can't make those findings, the planning commission can direct the denial of that component, well, the whole project, and the developer can then tweak it to remove the commercial if it's creating that impact or make some other adjustments.
Now, if we made those adjustments, let's say, do we need to make those adjustments on this current document? Or is this something that is already, because we don't have to go back to HCA's and say, hey, we're lowering the number of units, because we're gonna keep the same number of units, but we're gonna say, hey, it can't be so tall and it can be compliant with, but it would also obviously do away with commercial or whatever may be added. But is that something that could be added to this without having to go to HCD? Because we're not lowering the number of units that could be built on there. We're just now talking about the mixed use, whether or not the mixed use would go in certain areas.
You wouldn't change this ordinance, right? You would just work with the planning commission and modify the project.
Right.
You wouldn't change this document.
Right, so the goal would be, through the community process, is work with the developer and the development to understand the issues. The developer can list to the community and staff and try to massage it within the boundaries of the standards. Some sites, like I mentioned earlier, large, like a 10-acre or 15-acre site, would have more of the ability to be massaged than a 2-acre site. But in general, that's the goal. We do that with every project. To whatever it is, when a development comes in, the developers always want to maximize everything and minimize landscaping and setbacks and parking. We say, no, let's work with you. Those that go to community meetings get community input, and we hear from the residents. So that's the goal. The goal is to not site-specific cater the ordinance. It's because it's citywide in all the 91 sites. It's more so to set the umbrella. And then what we would do is, with specific projects, is work with the community, the staff, the planning commission, And to answer your point about does the planning commission have the ability to provide the ability to deny if they need to? We already have the findings outlined in the code for all projects. So what we do is staff would put the findings together with each development, but hopefully we can come to an agreement before then throughout the entire process and make sure that we've done the best we can before we put the planning commission in that role to have to get to the ability to deny. But there are findings in our code that allows us to do it without modifying what you have before you tonight.
Okay.
Any other questions? Fred, do you have more that you want to show us?
I do not. I believe we completed the slide. I know this is a public hearing, and we haven't opened that.
I have one more comment for the public.
Karen?
I think what's important to the public is, in this process, the members of the council and your ad hoc housing committee have met with people in Sacramento, met with housing and community development, studied recent lawsuits. Almost every city at the local level, up and down the state, has lost all their lawsuits against this. So now we're faced with the difficult challenge of, do we adopt a housing element that we know is almost impossible to attain with the RHNA numbers that have been assigned to us? By the way, those numbers are different for every city. They're assigned to us by HCD in the cycle. Or do we not adopt a housing element and run the risk of the penalty of the builder's remedy, wherein if we have a compliant housing element, it does give us certain protections, as the city attorney just said, to say, hey, we can proceed with the public meeting, try and get feedback from them, try and work with the developer to amend the project to make it more, what I would say, compatible to a neighborhood. Because in my opinion, a lot of these housing laws have been passed, and a lot of them are mandates without funding. These are mandates for us to do, but there's no funding from the state to come to us to build affordable housing. That was part of redevelopment when we did away with the redevelopment budget. But also, they are a little bit, to me, in favor of the developers. They can come in with these new laws, build at market rate, and only have to build a small percentage of them with the new laws at affordability, and henceforth we carry over that margin of non-affordability into the next housing cycle or into a buffer area. So it becomes the unenviable position of, do we take the risk of being fined, or like these other cities have been, or do we adopt it knowing that it's going to be a challenge for most builders to build this to begin with, and rely on what few laws that we have remaining at the local level to make builders work with communities in order to get the best project and more compliant. And I would also say, in sitting here and looking at this over the years, the project that we get today, and I assure you I can cite other projects in the city, is going to be better than the one we're going to get 5 years from now. Because those density numbers are going to continue to go up as they have in the past. I can cite projects in this city where that's already occurred. And if we don't adopt the best project that we can get today, I can guarantee you with the density that's assigned to us, which is 26 to 30 dwelling units per acre right now, will probably change in the future, to this date as well. So those are things that we all look at when we're trying to decide how to do this. I do believe it's important. With my past, career in law enforcement, to try and be compliant with state laws and mandates, but it has been very challenging for your staff and the council in this. So you guys, I think tonight have gotten just, I think in housing element 101, tonight, and what it is, the challenges that we have been faced with and the decisions that we have to make in the best interest of the city. For me, I'd rather take my chances with potentially having a compliant housing element and using the tools that we still have left in setbacks and community meetings and holding builders developable to deliver the best project that we can get today. Thank you, Mayor.
Curtis?
I'd like to thank everybody for being here. It's extremely important. And this project that's going to come about at Euclid and Schaefer has generated a lot of public attention to not just that project, but also this housing element. So I'm really, really happy that everybody's here. as the Mayor Pro Tem had mentioned, we have worked and worked and worked, as you've seen and you've heard, I think, in this meeting, for the last several years on this housing element, trying to put together a plan that best fits our community. It doesn't fit every community. We want our housing element to fit us and what our needs are. You know, we talk about being a bedroom community and Mayor, what's the term that you like to use? Balanced growth.
Something for everyone.
Something for everybody. We want this housing element to fit Chino. It's just not something that you can pull off the shelf and set it up. It just doesn't fit for us and what our needs are. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have fought and we have fought for years. We've gone to meetings, special workshops, special meetings. The Mayor Pro Tem and I and some of our staff have traveled up to Sacramento to meet with HCD, but we have fought and fought to try to put together a plan for Chino. But what we've never done is we've never surrendered. And I want you all to know that. We fight, we will continue to fight for you, for me and my family, because I'm in District 2. I'm over in your area as well. So this affects me directly. And I appreciate everybody and everybody being here and what you've had to say tonight. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, I do have one written request to speak before I call on the rest of the audience, and that's Susan Feckerty. Haven't seen you in a long time, Susan.
I know. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I haven't been here in a while. And I'm here on behalf of my wonderful neighbor and very intelligent man, Bob Nigg, who is out of the country. And Bob had some he had a great meeting with you, as probably they all know. But there are still some elements of the housing element that is still up in air. And you guys made some really good comments, and one of them is a quality of life issue. So knowing that there is a quality of life issue, the solar panels and other things, how are you going to address that with this housing element? There's no answer, right? No. Bob is requesting that you table it tonight and that we look at it again, give us a couple weeks where we can play with it and see how to, we'll use your term, massage it, okay? There are some things in the housing element that don't make sense yet, okay? One thing the state never required, Bob says, that it has to be a zoning of RD 30 when all the surrounding neighborhoods were RD 4.5 and RD 14. Why were all the mixed use overlays at RD 30? No answer on that one. I know you're not answering me. Okay, the building height was a big one. From what I understand from you tonight is that you didn't want to limit, the state did not require it to be 55 feet in the housing element, or 50 to 50. The state required it to be, I wanted to say 40. And I feel like tonight you're trying to express that there are areas of the city that you can build higher, and that's why you don't want to limit it, because this housing element will cover all of the city mixed-use overlay projects. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, maybe it's good to remind speakers, we're not here
Okay,
to sort
all
of
right.
answer questions
Okay.
that the
Okay,
council
you're
can take.
absolutely correct, and that is why Bob has asked that you table it tonight so that he can come in here when he's back in the country. He can work with the city manager again. She did so kindly send him a wonderful email that I have a copy of. Thank you very much. And there are some things that need to be looked at. I know you guys feel that you're under pressure to sign this off, okay? But you have a very concerned citizenry here we want to make this right. We don't want to do something in haste. So tonight, if you could just not agree to it yet, give us some more time where we can play with it. That would be our request. Thank you.
Okay, I know there's another lady. You wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I just had a clarifying question.
Say your name again,
My name
please.
is Michelle Betke. In the city, from what I was hearing, the city does have a say in approving exterior elevations into something that would be more homogeneous to the Chino, say, architectural fabric, if you would, of the community. Is that what I was hearing, Fred? Is that the city council would have a say to the exterior elevations? They do have some element of influence. And I'm not talking about any project specifically. You can use even the example of the cases that you brought up.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if you want me to answer the questions or.
There
we
are
can take them all.
standards that have already been set, and I know the planning commission does have leeway on exterior looks.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's not baked, right?
That's always been.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other audience? Yes, sir?
My name is Miguel Gutierrez. I just want you to visualize a 10-acre site with 1,000 people. It's a safety issue, it's a quality of life issue, and I don't know how the Planning Commission actually considered that density
Okay,
in our
again,
community.
this is not for that project.
That's not?
Item number 17 is for the whole housing element, not
Right,
that
but it's-
10-acre project.
Right, but it's still, I'm discussing the Euclid Schaefer.
No, I understand, but that's not
But I
what
still
the
want
site-
you to be aware of this situation, that the safety issue, the D.R. Horton facility or residence, they have two-car garages, they have 2 cars parked in their driveway, and their overflow goes into GERD, and it's continually, there's a lot of vandalism, all their cars get broken into, and that's just with a density that's not as dense as we're gonna have. So you have to be responsible for the safety issue and the quality of life of this program.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ma'am?
Lisa Measure, I'll remember this time. I just wanted to say thank you for you guys for sharing all the information today. I know how hard you guys work, and for my master's in public policy and administration, I know that, and I thought it was really important for you to share that with our community members here. So I do appreciate all your hard work, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Hi there, my name's Daniel Madrano. I do, as part of this whole thing with the housing elements and that, what happens with cities that are already built out, like Alhambra and that have no vacant lots? Are they required to have affordable housing too?
It's a great question. I know that Huntington Beach is in that very, very condition. Fred?
Yeah, every city in the state of California has received an obligation to develop and fit additional housing units, and that always includes an affordable housing component. So this RENA number includes affordability.
So that means anytime some community or something, a lot becomes vacant, they have to take that into consideration?
Or their shopping centers.
Yeah. Or convert the shopping centers into 100% housing.
Yeah, I asked that exact question.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, once the available land is gone, which is why most development goes to the land,
Right.
then now there's a reconsideration to reconfigure shopping centers and, into higher density in different lots.
And one other question related to, I know, a lot of our land over where the farms are at that has been earmarked or whatever for development of housing. Does the city council or the planning commission or anyone have a right to either change that zoning or something and say, we're not gonna build homes on there, instead, we're gonna do something different?
Well, the preserve is a master plan that
Yes,
has
not the
already been
preserve.
developed, so we can't touch it. But we don't really have any farms left. What we had to do in coming up with our RENA numbers, that we had to look at every available vacant property to see if we could fit these almost 7,000 units in.
Right. But in terms of that also, you're identifying locations or plots of land that potentially could be used for affordable housing.
Yes.
But you're not committing to the state that you're gonna build that on there.
Well, we can't, because we don't own the land.
developers are
Yeah,
the
we
ones
don't
who
own the land,
drive
and we
that.
don't build the homes. All we control is the zoning. And that's what we're required to do, is to zone it for possible development in the future. Now, I understand there is a possibility that if houses never get built, we can also be fined for that, even though we don't own the land and we don't build the homes.
Gee, I
It's
thought the
crazy.
requirement was just to identify to the state
Well,
what
it's
it is.
even more than that.
Wow.
I know.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, Karen. Well, let me close the
Okay.
public hearing.
Thank you.
Or do I?
Yes, close the public
Okay, I'm
hearing.
going to close the public hearing, and now council comments. Karen?
If this council were to consider Ms. Feckety's recommendation, what is the procedure for that? What would happen? How would that look?
So, I'm sorry. Yes. This is the public hearing to consider the approval. As your city manager reminded me, there is a second reading of the ordinance. The way to, if you did wish to continue the item, the way to do so is reopen the public hearing and continue it to a date certain. You know, with any direction for clarifications or additional information that the council would like.
Okay, well, let me ask a question, if I understood Warren correctly. If we change anything in this ordinance, it has to go back to HCD, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, they have to review it.
Okay, so I am guessing that all of the modifications that has been suggested by Mr. Nigg would require modifying the ordinance. Correct?
That's my understanding, ma'am.
Okay, so if we modify the ordinance, we have to go back through HCD, which means we don't have a housing element that's compliant, which means we would be subject to the builder's remedy.
All correct.
So could we adopt this and still consider his suggestions in the future, which would still go back to HCD, but we would not be under the shadow of builder's remedy?
Right, and actually HCD made that suggestion that to the extent the council has some concerns about sites and certain standards and wishes to propose an amendment, the process they recommended is approve the current version and then consider any of those revisions if it
And then
meets-
roll up our sleeves, meet with Mr. Nigg,
Right.
people, look at it in detail, figure out if there's something that we might be able to change, but at least we would take that threat of the builder's remedy away where they could come in and do whatever in the world they want to do.
Correct.
Okay. Other council comments or questions? Kurt? You were pushing on your button.
No, I don't have any.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we can either adopt it tonight, take away the threat of the builder's remedy, and then come back with suggestions to see if there's other things we can massage and change. Or we can put it off and possibly risk builder's remedy or a state coming down with a fine. What is the council's recommendation?
My recommendation is that we pass it this evening so that we don't subject ourselves to use in the future.
Okay, is that a motion?
I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
I'd like to make the motion that we adopt it this evening.
Okay, then push the motion button. Is there a second? Is there a second? If there isn't a second, then it's going to fail. Okay, then apparently that motion has failed. Now be careful, careful what you wish for, because if the builder's remedy comes into that site and does something even worse, there's nothing we can do about it. You need to understand that. Okay?
And then we can make the modifications even if we approve it this evening.
If you approve it this evening, you can still modify things.
Exactly.
But what you take away is the builder's remedy.
Exactly.
Whether it would come in and build something even worse than what's proposed. But if there's no second, then that motion fails. So,
I I'm not going to say I wouldn't vote for it to pass, but I will say, I think we should put it off for the next meeting, just to allow the community to come out and everybody have their say. And once and not changes or any of that, but at least so that the community feels that we gave them the opportunity to speak on this matter.
Okay, then we will, let's see, I'll reopen the public hearing.
That's
and
correct.
continue it to, what's our next council meeting?
November 9th.
Okay, so
19th?
I'm reopening the public hearing and continuing it to November 19th, correct?
Yes, is there some particular direction as far as what you'd like staff to come back with?
Ms. Fechtig talked about reconsidering the items that Mr. Nig had brought up.
Yeah, can I comment, Mayor?
Yes.
I think this is a good compromise. I think it allows for staff to come back. I think there is value in getting the compliant housing element, but it gives us an opportunity to get more feedback from the community that's obviously here tonight. You know, normally when we sit in a council meeting, there's nobody here, and that means everything's going fine. But when we have a packed house, you know, there's a concern by the community. So I think that's fair.
The one point I just want to clarify is, I know the letter from Mr. Ning asked for changes to the proposed ordinance, and just so the council is reminded, we can't make those changes without having communications with and approval from HCD.
Which could drag it on for months and months. As
Right.
long as everybody understands that.
What I'm saying is there was a lot of talk on social media that we held this on this day, which was the election day, and that people couldn't really come out here and voice their opinions. So I just want to give them the opportunity. If they want to come out and they want to talk about it, I'm not going to say we're going to adopt the changes or that we're going to send it back to HCH, but I want to give the people the opportunity that said that they couldn't come here because of the election, to have the opportunity to come here. And
When is he coming back, Susan?
Next week,
Next week?
yes. He'll be back, plenty of time, trust me, by the next time you're gonna talk about this.
All right, so then staff needs to consider the suggested changes. Bring it back to the council.
Okay, so then we would need a motion, a second, to continue it to the 19th.
Okay, then I need a motion
I'll make
and
the
a
mo-
second to reopen and continue the public hearing to November 19th. Okay, there's a motion. Motion from Councilman Lucio, second from Councilman Flores. Please vote. Okay, it passes 4 yes with 1 no, that being Mr. Burton. Okay, so we will continue this to the 19th. Okay, let's go back to the consent calendar. Do the council members wish any items to be pulled off consent? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Motion from Councilman Flores, second by Councilman Lucio. Please vote. Karen, please vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Curtis? Okay, consent calendar passes unanimously. Item number 16, formation of improvement area number 11 in Community Facilities District 2003-3. Public hearing regarding the formation of an improvement area 11 in CFD 2003-3. To declare the public hearing open, ask for a staff report from our acting director of finance, Nadine Lowry.
Good evening, Mayor, Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. On October 1st, 2024, the City Council adopted Resolution 2024-011, declaring the City of Chino's intent to establish Improvement Area 11 within CFD 2003-3, known as the Preserve. The establishment of this improvement area is being recommended pursuant to the development agreement and will allow the city to levy a facilities special tax and a services special tax within the boundaries of the improvement area. These special taxes will be used to pay for infrastructure and public services required within this area. Tonight's recommended actions are to adopt the required resolutions for the formation of the improvement area, call for a special election, hold the special election, tally the election results, approve the resolution certifying the election results, and then approve the introduction of the ordinance authorizing the levy of special taxes within this improvement area. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the proceedings as outlined by the mayor this evening. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on item number 16? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing. At this time, we're ready to call for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2024-54 and 2024-55. There's a motion from Councilman Flores, second from Councilman Lucio. Please vote. That portion passes unanimously. Ready for, the resolutions that we've just adopted. Establish improvement area number 11 within the district. Authorize the levy of special taxes within improvement area number 11. In accordance with the adopted rate and method of apportionment, determine the necessity to incur bonded indebtedness and call for an election within improvement area number 11, which election is to be held at this time by the city clerk. Natalie?
Thank you, Mayor. All ballots have been cast in connection with the election for improvement area number 11 of CFD number 2003-3 of the City of Chino, and the election has now been closed. The results of the election were unanimous, 20 votes in favor of all propositions.
Okay, having heard the statement of the city clerk, I'll now entertain a motion in a second to adopt resolution number 2024-56, certifying the results of the election along with the introduction of ordinance 2024-12, authorizing the levy of a special tax and the bonded indebtedness within the district. We have a motion from Councilman Burton, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock. Attorney Galante.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and all those present. The City Council is considering the following ordinance to be read by title only and waiving further reading. An ordinance number 2024-012 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Chino acting in its capacity as the legislative body of Community Facilities District number 2003-3 of the City of Chino on behalf of improvement area number 11 therein, authorizing the levy of a special tax within improvement area number 11 of the district. Thank you, Mayor.
Please vote. Item passes unanimously. Okay, item number 17, amendment of the 2021, never mind, we're postponing that one. Move on to, under new business, item number 18, federal asset forfeiture funds, police bloodhound canine, federal grant G 4255. This is to approve the adoption, or a portion, of $23,794 from unappropriated reserves of the Asset Forfeiture Department of Justice Fund 120 for the purchase of a police bloodhound canine and increase the asset forfeiture revenue by $23,794. Staff report this evening will be provided by Captain Ryan Crowley and Chief Kevin Minson.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of council. So back in the spring, we discussed the possibility, we were having all the discussions regarding the prison and the condemned inmates being brought to CIM about the possibility of obtaining a police bloodhound. So here we are. We've done a lot of work between now and then to get to the final stages, and today is a presentation by Captain Crowley for funding to kick off this program. So I'll turn it over to Captain Crowley, who will have the report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We're excited this evening to share about the new Bloodhound program and request the use of asset forfeiture funds to help get this program off the ground. Early in 2024, we began to research how we can enhance our abilities to locate people through the use of bloodhounds. Bloodhounds are universally recognized for their superior tracking skills. their refined sense of smell, and their ability to track for extended periods of time, distances, and through challenging environments. If you've ever seen a bloodhound work, they're off the chart in trying to get through and get to where that scent is leading them. And so generally, bloodhounds are used for locating missing persons, victims of crimes, or even suspects. But as the chief specifically stated, we began to really look at how could we effectively locate an escaped inmate if an inmate escaped from one of the prisons, knowing that we have now condemned inmates being housed at CIM. And so using a bloodhound is one of the tools that is very effective should that happen. I want to share with you just a brief story. About 2 years ago, we actually had an inmate walk away from the fire camp down off of Central Avenue. Both the chief and myself were out there as commanding officers during the investigation. And several hours in, we were able to get a bloodhound out to our location. It took several hours. However, we were able to use that bloodhound to track them from the camp to a neighborhood down off of Euclid. Very effective. But as soon as we got the bloodhound, it was on the trail. We were able to safely take that inmate back into custody. I'm very thankful for their response that evening, but it's always up to the availability. When we don't have our own resources, it's up to the availability of the bloodhounds to be able to come and be a part and help out in our investigations. Our training group that we would be a part of includes 12 bloodhounds from 7 surrounding agencies. And that sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of work that's out there for the bloodhounds in different areas. So having an additional tool, this bloodhound for us, would really strengthen our commitment to public safety. In March, Bloodhound Scout, as you can see, began his training program in Tallahassee, Florida. After about 8 months of training, he will be ready to join the Chino Police Department on December 2nd. To establish this program, we're requesting $23,794 of asset forfeiture funds to purchase Scout, to go through the week-long training that we will send our officers out there to do the training program with him, and the equipment necessary to continue to train Scout for his mission. The ongoing costs will be paid for out of the existing canine budget, and we're excited to add Scout to help enhance the dedication to the safety of our community. So with that, this concludes our report, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What is the real cost of Scout and the training?
Yes, ma'am. We actually put down $1,000 as a good faith deposit in his training to get him prepared for that 8 months.
What does he cost?
His cost is actually, let me see here. Give me a quick second. It is $13,500. So we initially put down a $1,500 deposit.
So he cost $13,500, and then
Yes, ma'am.
the training, the 8 months of training that he's already gone through.
He's already gone through that training. Yes,
And
ma'am.
is that the 23,000?
No, there's 11,794 in training and equipment. And so that training includes us flying out there, our accommodations, and flying back with Scout. So we'll be sending a lieutenant, a sergeant, and an officer out there to attend that training.
Okay, and then, so the ongoing cost of Scout, we have a fund already for all of our canines?
Yes, ma'am, and Scout will be included into that cost. I don't have that number in front of me, ma'am, but it will be included into that.
And with the funding, Mayor, we had, at one point, we had 4 canine dogs, and they were all apprehension dogs. And so when we went down to 3, we still had in the budget for the 4th apprehension dog, but we found that having a bloodhound, we still have 3 apprehension dogs. By adding a bloodhound would just open our ability for locating missing persons and what a bloodhound is used for.
So now we only have 3.
We have 3 apprehension dogs, and we've had 3 for a little bit of time now.
Have we ever, can't remember in the past couple decades where we've actually had a full tenure of 4 apprehension dogs, have we?
I think at one point we did.
We did.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Who are the ones that we have now? What are the names?
I don't know the names of the dogs. I know the names of the officers.
I want the dog names. You know?
We have Bart, and we have Angel's dog. and
Angel's
Helena.
dog, that's not the dog.
No, it's not Angel's dog, it's Officer Brand's dog, and I can't think of the.
And then
Well,
Helena.
can you
Helena.
just send me a little note later? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Okay, who's going to be Scout's handler?
We chose Officer Dominic Diaz.
Okay, now does he get to stay for a while with this dog?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. It breaks my heart when you pull the dog and the officer apart. I just think that's mean.
We typically,
They are tools, Mayor.
I know.
and it doesn't happen that often. Usually the officer stays on that assignment, generally speaking, for the duration of their assignment. Now we've had because typically in the past is when an officer would promote to corporal, they would lose the dog. But now because of the complexity of the assignment, we actually, like Officer Brand, promoted to corporal. So Corporal Brand, and he kept his canine when he promoted to corporal.
Good, because they form such a bond, you know.
They do.
And it's heartbreaking when you separate them. So I think you should keep them together forever.
We do our best.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? Any questions of the audience? Need a motion and a second, please. Motion from Councilman Flores, second from Councilman Lucio. Please vote. Passes unanimously. And when you get him, you're going to bring him here, right? So we can.
Yes, ma'am, we will bring him and introduce him to the council and the community.
Cool. All right.
Thank you so much.
Item number 19, approve construction contract change order 2 with CP Construction Company Incorporated, Upland, California, for the Kimball Avenue Preserve Improvements Project ST 232. This item is to appropriate $1,417,809 with a corresponding increase to the project budget for the Kimball Avenue Preserve Improvement Project ST 232 and approve change order number 2 with CP Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $681,758.45. Staff report this evening provided by Michelle Hinson, our senior engineer, and Hygen Lee, our director of public works.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. I don't think we could beat that one. That was such a good story, and we'll be talking numbers here. So, Michelle.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Tonight, I will provide a background, change order details, funding sources, and project costs for Project ST 232, and next steps for the remaining work along Kimball Avenue within the preserve. The Kimball Avenue Preserve Improvements Project includes 2 components. The Kimball Avenue street improvements widen the northern half of Kimball Avenue between Rincon Meadows Avenue and Main Street to accommodate 2 lanes of westbound traffic. This work included coordination with SoCal Edison and various utility companies to relocate several Edison poles. The scope also included pavement rehabilitation on Kimball Avenue, consisting of a mill and overlay along both sides of the roadway between Rincon Meadows and Main Street. The Kimball Avenue storm drain improvements consists of constructing a box culvert structure beneath Kimball Avenue connecting 2 existing basins located on the north and south sides of Kimball Avenue on the County Department of Airports property. The city has executed a cooperative agreement with the county in which the county will reimburse the city for construction of these drainage improvements. To date, the utility relocations, road widening, and storm drain improvements have been completed, with final pavement cap and pavement rehabilitation left to be done. On July 5, 2023, the project work for ST 232 was awarded to CP Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $2,959,540. On June 28 of this year, change order number 1 was approved administratively in the amount of $31,200 for unforeseen items related to the Kimball Avenue storm drain improvements. At this time, staff is now seeking council approval for change order number 2 in the amount of $681,758.45 for expansion of the pavement rehabilitation on Kimball Avenue. This slide shows the approximate limits of the pavement rehabilitation included with the storm drain improvement project component. This slide further shows the extent of the pavement rehabilitation included within the original contract in blue and the proposed additional pavement rehabilitation limits included with change order number 2 in red. The extended limits will expand the scope easterly to Hellman Avenue in order to provide a uniform appearance and consistent aging of the roadway within this corridor. The original scope of pavement rehabilitation is approximately 3/4 miles. Change order number 2 will double this amount for a total pavement rehab extent of approximately 1.5 miles. Just note that between Flight and Hellman Avenue, pavement rehabilitation would only occur on the south side, as the north side improvements were recently constructed by a private development. This slide provides the change order breakdown for the work proposed under change order 2. As noted, the original contract work included pavement rehab between Rincon Meadows and Main Street for a total of $736,050. At time of award, the source of funding for this pavement rehabilitation was the Transportation Fund 320, which was to be backfilled by the Preserved Bridges, Streets, and Thoroughfares Development Impact Fees Fund 260. Since the pavement rehabilitation is not included in the DIF, the source of funding for this work, plus the expanded pavement rehabilitation work, which totals $1,417,808.45, will be allocated from Measure I and RMRA funds. The corresponding amount of $736,050 will be returned to the Fund 260 balance. The additional work to the contract does total $681,758.45. This slide presents the overall funding sources for the project. As previously noted, change order number 2 will require additional appropriations in the amount of $717,809 from Measure I and $700,000 from RMRA. Additionally, funds unexpected to be used for the project, totaling $4,980,000, will be returned to the Fund 260 balance. With these actions, the revised budget for ST 232 will be $4,494,049.94. This slide presents the overall project costs. With approval of change order number 2 totaling $681,758.45, this will bring the CP Construction's revised contract amount to $3,672,498.45, and overall project costs will be $4,480,488.45. Finally, this slide just shows images of the project. On the left side, we're showing the contractor installing the drainage culvert and the outlet on the south side of Kimball Avenue. And to the right are images of the Kimball Avenue widening construction. Staff is therefore recommending that City Council appropriate $717,809 from the Measure I Fund and $700,000 from the SB Road Maintenance Rehabilitation Fund, and approve change order number 2 for $681,758.45 to CP Construction Company, Inc. And also authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents on behalf of the city for this action. Just note, if approved this evening, the contractor is ready to mobilize tomorrow to start the paving operations on Kimball Avenue for the extended limits. Hajan and myself are here to answer any questions council may have.
Michelle, the north side of Kimball is pretty rough. When are we going to finish the north side?
Which limits are you referring to?
From Hellman over to, I don't know, a ways. I was there the other day on the north side, and I called you, Hajan, and said, it's rough. Do you know when that part is going to be finished?
My understanding was it was already paved as another project by a developer, right?
Yes, this, between Flight and Hellman Avenue on the north side, we had a recent development come in on the corner, and the other project to the west also recently should have paved.
I'll go back out and check it again because it was pretty rough. Any questions from the audience on this item? Okay, seeing none, any council comments? Okay, then I need a motion and a second, please. Motion from Councilman Lucio, second from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock. Please vote. Item passes unanimously. Okay, under Mayor and Council reports, I'm going to pass on my report. Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, you have item number 20.
Thank you, Mayor. I do. I'm asking for the council's community support in the amount of $250 for the Chino 77th Cavalry for some band expenses that they have. I received a request from them, and I'm asking for the council's support on that item.
Okay, we need a motion and a second. Motion from Councilman Burton, second from Councilman Flores. Please vote. Item passes unanimously. Rest of your report, please.
Mayor, I'm going to pass on my report tonight as well. I'm sure our staff and the rest of our residents who remain here would like to get home and watch the election results tonight.
Okay, Councilman Burton.
And thank you, Mayor. I will also defer. Thank you.
Councilman Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a long report. Bear with me. I'm kidding. I'll pass my report as well.
You know what? You're getting pretty bratty. Councilman Lucio, you have item number 21.
I'd like to ask for approval for a community support fund contribution of $250 to the Sir Optimus International Chino Valley Hoedown.
Okay, we need a motion and a second, please. Is that already it? Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Flores, second from Councilman Burton. Please vote. Item passes unanimously. Rest of your report, please.
I too pass on my report.
Okay, City Manager Reich.
No report, Mayor.
City Attorney Galante.
I've spoken enough. No report. Thank you.
Police Chief Menson. Any director reports? Nope. Fire Chief Williams. Nope. Okay, we're adjourning to our next regular meeting, which will be held November 19th in these council chambers at 6 o'clock with closed session starting no earlier than 4 if necessary. We are adjourned.